If anybody actually wants one of these, they do them in various colours. I found them on AliExpress, so I can actually do an affiliate link for those, but I'll try and do that in a minute. I'll just get the live stream thing set up properly first. Or I want to view it in live control panel and put the default settings on. I'm on a bit earlier today because I've got some stuff I have to sort out a bit later. Also, yes, Viet Cong helmet came, and I've got a French pip helmet as well now somewhere. So, view in live control panel, that's what I want. Then I can edit the last couple of settings that you can't save as a preset. All right, Miss Valdez. Or Valdez, sorry. You okay? So anyway, I'll put put that on that. Customization, and I'm going to do the thing that people need to have been subscribed for 5 minutes to comment, just so I don't get anybody come on and start spamming the chat non-stop like we tend to get on a lot of these live streams. Right, I'll do pop-out chat as well, so I can put it on a right, Firebruv. I'll just put it on a white screen. So if I do that, then I can open a chat on there, and it means it should be a lot brighter, and I can look roughly in the same area as where my phone is. Oh, well, I mean, not good you had surgery, but I suppose good it's done and out the way with. Yeah, quite a lot better, Firewood. I've still got a bit of a sore throat. I've still got this annoying thing. It's getting better each day where everything doesn't taste quite right. But I'm finding if I use really strong mouthwash like Listerine, it actually, helps more. I've also been sucking on these as well, gingins, like the double strength ones, which are really strong, like sort of boiled sweets. Because if I have something that tastes really strong in my mouth, it's not too bad. But like I said, it's just makes you feel a bit sick, and that when you're just getting like a weird kind of taste in your mouth after a while. But like I said, that seems to be clearing up. I don't know what it was. It's probably because there was so much hot weather and everything, and yeah, I imagine natural mint would. But I was saying, like, that's ginger. That's like a proper ginger extract thing. That one, gingins, and they're good, like ginger flavored things, and like garlic and onions good as well for just like being antibacterial and yeah, exactly. But yeah, so if anyone wants one of these shirts, I know YouTube's got it the wrong way round there because annoyingly I can't have the orientation on here appear correctly. What does that button do? Retouch. Oh, okay. Retouch off, retouch on. Oh, is it like a... Oh, well, look, I've got these fancy filters or whatever. I don't want to highlight anything. What's the other thing? Oh, green screen. I can have a ineffective green screen. That's a YouTube feature, apparently. That looks awful. Wouldn't I need a picture to have on the green screen? How do I turn this off now? Oh, no. How do I get rid of this green screen? Oh, I see. Okay, there we go. I could put a picture up from my background. That's probably not a good idea. But yeah, so yeah, I've got a load of stuff to do videos on. There's a gas mask I still want to do a video on. I keep forgetting to do a video on, until I'm not near it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I need to do a video on that. I've also got some of the knockoff Rhodesian camouflage stuff I bought, so that's good to do a video on. I've got this PIF helmet and another PIF helmet I haven't yet done videos on. But yeah, so I've got quite a few things. Oh, what will interest people is a while ago I bought the drinking tube adapter so you can use with camel packs, an S10 or like an FM12 or whatever. And I finally got a proper camel pack now, so I can actually do a video demonstrating this adapter with a camel pack and things like that. So yeah, I've got a lot of stuff I want to do videos on. Oh, and some more North Korean snacks and everything. But yeah, the main issue is, like I said, getting time to do it. Because like I said, the first couple of days this week, I just was really busy and really tired and not feeling great because of the fact that, like I said, I just obviously must have caught some sort of infection with it being really like hot and humid last sort of, the back end of last weekend. I think that just drained me even more. It was one of those weekends where, all right, Soviet Union, even if you were like drinking a lot of water, it was one of those things that you're still feeling dehydrated just because of how humid it was. Like when it's obviously a dry heat, it's not too bad. But when you're all like sweaty and horrible and your sweat doesn't go anywhere, you're still going to get dehydrated. So I was ending up the second day drinking loads of sports drinks rather than just plain water because that worked a bit better. But yeah, I ended up going for the red one of these shirts because I thought the red with the yellow looked a bit like, you know, the actual Soviet flag, like the pinky red with the yellow, whereas all the other ones were just, you know, like whatever color on a whatever color background, you know. But this is the one that's like, oh, it's actually Soviet colors. But yeah, so with this, I need to really find a way of adjusting the liner in this. I mean, it's not going to be hard to do, but you know what I mean? As in, because the problem is with this PIF helmet, I suppose there's a chin strap people barely ever use of a PIF helmet. I suppose that does kind of work. And then there's the weird way people wore these chin straps like that at some point, which was like a weird fashion thing. But yeah, because with this one, I'm finding that the liner is way too loose at the moment, so I want to obviously tighten that up. So both the top and the other bit, because at the moment it's so what do you call it? Like, you know, where the liner's like essentially your head's touching the top of the helmet because the liner isn't taut enough to actually work as a liner. I'm just wondering if there's a way of re-threading this without again, a lot of this looks like you could just pull it tight, but I suppose then you just need to tie a little knot, don't you? I then don't want it to that might be better for that one. That's a bit tighter. Again, might have to tighten it a bit more, but that is better than what it was. Now the top one, yeah, let's do that, and I'll go back to the chat in a second. It's just, yeah, I'd probably just put brand new string in this liner, I think, if I was going to wear it properly, because like I said, this helmet is the Viet Cong helmets are cool, but compared to my other PIF helmets, the liner on this isn't very good. Again, if they'd have just done like a standard shoelace in it, it might have been all right, but this is just like really low quality bad string. Is that a bit better? Ah, that's more comfy. Right, there we go. So Dutch Vandalin said hot pockets. But yeah, there we go. So that's the liner a bit better in that now. It's not quite as squishy on either side. You know, it's got a bit more tension to it. So again, that rear one, though, I still need to get that a bit tight in the ears. I'll do another knot on that one, I think. I suppose the problem with that one, actually, is it's... trying to think of a way of, like, I can thread it back through somehow. But again, you can't. This is like I was saying, it's one of those ones where I'd probably just end up re-stringing the whole thing if I was going to honestly wear it for a decent period of time. I will go back to the chat. I just want to get this so when I wear it, it's less annoying. Again, that's going to be a bit better than what it was, but still not great. Not terrible. What was I doing? I was adjusting the liner on a Viet Cong PIF helmet, or a North Vietnamese PIF helmet. There we go. That's better. Yeah, doesn't actually crush my skull now. As in, yeah, it sits where it should sit on its actual suspension system. Not all right, Alexi. Yeah, good. Thanks, Ian. I got a couple of bits filmed earlier, and then you know, various other bits done, but still got a bit of a cold and all that at the moment. But yeah, so out of all the PIF helmets I've got, I'd say this one has the least sort of good liner. But it's not awful, but like I said, it's just one of those ones where you definitely want to sort of probably do your own shoelace strings that True Soldier. Not really. Although, again, the funny thing is people wearing this beat the US Army, didn't they? Although I suppose technically with Vietnam it's kind of weird because they didn't really directly beat the US, the Vietnamese, North Vietnam. They basically just outlasted them like Afghanistan in a war of attrition, you know, kind of thing, until the US eventually got bored, if you like, pulled out, gave, you know, guarantees to South Vietnam, a bit like with Afghanistan, then they just didn't do anything when they got attacked again. Yeah, ask away. And all right, fireworks, main. And JJ says, I thought I had an on and off cold for the last 2 weeks, which was great. Yeah, exactly. When I was in a heat wave, I was feeling under the weather, like pun intended. Yeah, well, like I said, if you read the shirt, I know it's mirrored on here, but if you read the shirt, it's quite channel appropriate. But yeah, like I said, if I end up just doing a video on this shirt just as a laugh, I can do an affiliate link to that, because I just randomly found these when I was on AliExpress, and then I actually realised that you could change the colour of this particular shirt. And I was like, oh, red and gold, so it looks like the actual Soviet colours. Yeah, I'll actually have that. But yeah, what's your question, Soviet Union, assuming that YouTube isn't going to hide your question? All right. I got one from World War One, and the leather seal is starting to flake. Do you know how I could fix it? World War One masks you have to be really careful with, just because of how brittle they can be. But in general, with most masks, if you get a really good quality like silicone lubricant without loads of stuff added, that generally works all right on like leathers, rubbers, fabrics. But yeah, like I said though, but the thing is, if it's World War One, you want to be really careful, because obviously World War One stuff is very valuable and, like, you know, even more prone to breaking. So the honest answer is I wouldn't really know. You'd actually need to know the proper leather used in it. But essentially, if the leather's drying out, you just want something that's going to rehydrate the leather as much as possible. Oh, small box respirator. There's probably people who have done videos on like restorations or like, you know, caring for small box respirators, I'd imagine. All right, Visa. But yeah, there's but like I said, it's going to be a case of finding a chemical that kind of traps moisture into the fabric that's there, but doesn't damage the fabric. And like I said, silicone lubricant, the good quality silicone lubricant, not the cheap and nasty stuff that can actually damage masks. That is good for a lot of rubber masks with like leather and other plastics on. So I don't think it would cause an issue with a small box respirator. But again, you'd want to really ask people that have a lot of you know, knowledge of looking after World War One stuff specifically. The VM37 is cooler, just because the VM37 is like a GP5 style helmet mask, whereas the VM40 is like that, but with really cheap, horrible straps. And the VM44 is actually really cool as well, but simply because it's one of those like last ditch Volkssturm sort of Volkssturm or whatever it's called, you know, like low tier sort of things where they just about made a functioning gas mask. It looks like somebody just dried out some toilet paper. So I'll do that so the 3.6 font and it's still visible. Yeah, I know what you mean, JJ. I quite want off to do that, but I always have the typical sod's law thing of, if it's going to be an evening that's going to be good, like good stuff for doing it in the evening, it'll be when my hay fever's bad or like I've got something on. And then when the weather's terrible and it's pissing down is when like I'll have the free time to do it. Soviet GP5, I've got one behind me. Oh, that's not a GP5. Actually, I don't actually have a direct Soviet GP5 behind me. I've got some of the other hobby block masks of the same ilk, but like the other helmet masks. But yeah, it's perfectly fine for what they designed it for. There's nothing good about it really, or bad. It's just, you know, a mass-produced helmet mask that did its job. Like I said, it's perfectly serviceable. Cheers. And the shirt you might like as well, but I know you're going to have to read it mirrored. Probably not nastiest. Is that just a surplus store? I'll search them, but surplus store even. But so is that the military affair? Because that looks pretty cool, if that's what it is. TF1 knockoff. Oh, it's not technically a TF1 knockoff of it, is it? If it's an actual proper TF1. Yeah, what you can do, JJ, is just get a standard PIF helmet like this. I've got one in the other room, but sadly don't have it handy in like grey or khaki. Because I've got the British Army style big surplus, not surplus, PIF helmet there. But yeah, the US postal worker style ones they wear are just these small. So yeah, the French. What you want to search is French style PIF helmet, because the The Vietnamese helmets are based off of the French, can't speak now, French colonial helmets. So, yeah, it's just they're in like khaki or whatever, or cream rather than like green. But yeah, big goofy helmet to my right. Well, that one you're looking at, that's the old British one. Or are you on about my left? Because again, it depends on which thing you're looking at, because of course it's mirrored. So the way you're looking at it, if you're on about this one, this is the British equivalent one. So this is obviously the Vietnamese one based on the French one. That's the British one. The yeah. So that's the British colonial period one. You know, this is probably my favourite one, just because it's the one of you know, the historical you know, the jackboot of the empire kind of thing. But yeah, the French ones are probably a lot more practical, like the Vietnamese French ones, because these are like, a lot of it is just kind of a combination of it does its job plus it looks cool. But technically, these helmets are almost the exact same shape as, you know, the old police constable helmets. Yeah, you can be Van Pelt from Jumanji with this, because he's got one of these like exact pith helmets on, just with a spike on the top. But yeah, like I said, they're cool helmets. Obviously, they were designed to keep people like cool in really hot, like, you know, Asian and African countries. They're not designed to be a proper helmet. So to my right, your left. So about to my right, yeah, to my right, which is that way, that one, the MM1 on the mannequin. That's the only gas. Oh, you're on about the PDF, what's it called? Yeah, hanging on the wall. But yeah, the problem is obviously called everything's inverted, but some people keep saying the directions like it's not inverted, so I don't know. But yeah, the liner I prefer on this one, so it's got a bit of Velcro around the back. And again, it's still that shoelace kind of style suspension system, but it does seem a bit better on this one. The problem, like I was saying with this one, is it was just really hard to adjust just because I haven't done this yet with this one. I was just checking that actually came down all right. Yeah, it did. Because obviously the reason that that's on there is as for the chin strap. But that's a bit misdone on there. I'll probably have to take that off and sort that out, because yeah, that's that whole thing, or has it just become twisted? No, I think the person who assembled that has assembled it incorrectly. Right, it will look fine this way up anyway, but yeah, with a helmet like this that I'm not going to seriously use as a combat helmet, they can just sit on there looking cool like that, because you don't need it. But yeah, obviously the reason these are designed to come down is that's your chin strap. So the idea being that obviously if you were using it like a real helmet, on like that and then down like that for your actual chin strap. But again, the funny thing is, a helmet like this made out of, I suppose this is quite similar to the Mark II Brody, actually saying that, Mark I or Mark II helmet. Or the Japanese World War II helmets, actually saying that. If you actually made this out of steel or like, you know, some sort of proper like resistant material, this wouldn't actually be bad as a military helmet style design. I suppose, yeah, it is actually just quite similar to the Japanese World War II helmet, actually looking at the shape of that. Big goofy helmet to my right. What big goofy helmet there? I can't see a big goofy helmet. There's the East German mannequin. Is there something over my left shoulder you can see? I thought you said that one, but yeah. North Vietnam. So you can still buy these as surplus. I think they still make them for ceremonial stuff. But Vietnam, funny enough, is the main maker of pith helmets anyway. I couldn't find in the packaging the actual like reverse nut, so I've just put a little wing nut on there to hold the badge on. But oh, that's cool. Yeah. So sad thing with Veristroke, or however it's pronounced over here, is you actually because because obviously I'm not in Finland. Normally the postage is what ends up meaning that there's stuff on there I like the look of, but with the postage and that, it ends up being like not worth my time buying it. All right, cool. Yeah, never mind. Yeah, that's the problem in version, because there's no way of actually, like I said, within the inversion on these cameras, the really annoying thing is there's no way, as far as I'm aware, of actually telling YouTube I don't want it inverted. Because on some streams, you used to be able to do that and say, like, I'll have it the same way round, you know, so all text reads the right way. Cheers, if you like. I mean, the wing nut there isn't going to get in my way at all. Like, I'd have to really do that to even feel it's there. But yeah, I just put a little wing nut on it, like I said, because of the fact that the mask on the wall, which kind of filter does it use? The kids' PDF, they use GP5 filters. It was just the filter was kept in the bag. And then, like, obviously, the weight of the filter is in the bag, you know, being supported by the straps, not all on the hose. But yeah, essentially, the kids and the adults had the same filters. It was just that the kids had them on the little weird, like, inbuilt hose. The adults had them, you know, directly on the mask. Yeah, easier to take it off, exactly. Yeah, you just obviously get the wing nut and do this. I won't completely take it off now, because that can be a bit of a pain in the ass to re-thread properly when it's inside like that. But yeah, you can just do that. And when you say in the back, khaki helmets, like I say, the British Army style ones, and most of the proper Colonial ones were khaki and either pure white or khaki, like that. It's just the Vietnamese, obviously, because they were like their own communist country, they did it actually in practical colours. But it is just a pith helmet, you know, it is literally a helmet that's designed to just be worn in. So yeah, like I said, the old-fashioned Colonial ones, like, so when the French had Vietnam as French Indochina or whatever they called it, they would have had like these style hats, but in, like, you know, the same color as this. But when they, and again, I've got one in the other room, annoyingly, but I didn't think to bring it in. But I will do another video on pith helmets, actually, because they're kind of interesting. A waffle. The waffle secret sauce. Yeah. But that's cool anyway. But yeah, so but yeah, the Vietnamese obviously decided, so it didn't look like they were still, I guess, a member of a colonial sort of, you know, like a colonial sort of puppet or whatever. They made their own helmets in green. But in theory, you can have any color you want on a thing. Yeah, Germans had their own pith helmet. Their design as well changed over the years. Like with the British ones, there's actually a more modern variant than this one that's kind of halfway between this and the French one, which is a bit weird. I don't have one of those. I know what you meant. I just didn't know if YouTube would censor it. But yeah, but again, with like a lot of the empires, if you look, like the pith helmets they're wearing seem to be quite interchangeable. Obviously, like this design is the one that like Britain's quite famous for wearing. But again, it's like way bigger than it needs to be. I mean, it probably gives you way more shade, but yeah, this is like the really stupidly big one. Pilot equipment. There's no pilot equipment behind me. There's a mannequin, loads of gas masks, poster, Polish old vehicle-bound radiation meter, but no. Oh, thank you very much, Dutch van der Lind. Thank you for the faith. Gotta have faith. Thank you. These are just plastic normally, or some of them don't even have plastic in. Then because normally, obviously, a pith helmet is actually made of cork, like they're made from cork or pith, which is how they're designed to work. Is that it's, you know, like kind of a breathable kind of, you know, just plant-based helmet, a bit like, you know, instead of having a straw helmet, these cork. This one, I'm pretty sure is slightly plasticky, like they put a plastic coating on it. The French one as well is I think the French one as well is a plastic liner in, if I remember right. I mean, again, it depends what period they're being made on, because obviously back in the 1800s they wouldn't have been plastic at all because it wasn't an available thing. What is my rarest item? I don't really know off the top of my head. I've got 2 British C7 gas masks, and the C7 is rare in the sense that it wasn't rare when it was produced, but the government basically recorded nearly all of them and destroyed them or recycled them. But yeah, for people saying, are these armoured or whatever, no armour at all to these. Because I did see some people on a fucking Reddit going like, oh no, these are really good helmets, they can stop bullets. It's like, no, a PIF helmet is not a bulletproof helmet. Like, it's probably going to protect you a little bit from a blow to the head, but that's it. For the most part, these are just for, you know, keeping the sun out of your head and, you know, keeping you cool. Because again, the nice thing with PIF helmets, because again, part of the problem if you put a plastic liner in might defeat part of the point of this, is I don't have a C7 handy, I'm afraid to show you. But again, that's from doing a live stream. Nothing's all around me at all moments. But with the proper PIF helmets, the idea was with them being a breathable cork-like material like this one, is that you could soak them in water, and then obviously they stayed cool pretty much the entire day. Like, they don't drip like crazy, but they keep your head cool because the corks absorb the water. So that's kind of one of the things you're meant to do with them, is just like keep soaking them in water to keep your head cool. Regarding DX, I've got recently an obsolete caliber like replica gun, but with DX again, a lot of them are just too expensive. So again, I'd like a G3, but I've never seen one in like recent years for good money. So it's one of those things I can't really say, because it would just be, if I've got available cash and something pops up, I might get one. Otherwise, you know, not really any point speculating. But yeah, speaking of the Rorke's Drift stuff, like Joshua was saying, yeah, the ones at Rorke's Drift were white, and then apparently what led to them coming in as khaki later on, or khaki later on, was specifically because of the fact that the white ones really are obvious where somebody is. So when it ended up being that they wanted them a bit more camouflage, the soldiers themselves would either dye them like a brown colour, or they just issued them in this sort of colour. If they could make that much from selling them, JJ, that would be why. But I do think a lot of DX are in that sort of silly thing where they list them wanting way too much for them, and then that's why you see the same guns on the same sites for years, because they never shift, because some people are like, you know, I might pay a couple of £100 to £500 for that, but I'm not paying like £2,000 or whatever. Just gonna tighten that cockade or whatever it's called on there. Right. Well, 2 PIF helmets. Basically completely recently. This one isn't an old one, Ian. It's just one of the ones made by a Vietnamese company that makes nearly all of them. Yeah. Style British PIF helmet made in Vietnam. I don't know if you can how well that will show up on there, but yeah. It's just there's one company in Vietnam where it seems that they're like the company that makes every single modern PIF helmet, like replica of every country on the market. It's like, you want a German World War II PIF helmet? It's made in Vietnam. You want like any of the British Colonial like replicas? Made in Vietnam. French ones? Made in Vietnam. Actual Vietnamese ones? Made in Vietnam. It seems like that's one of their industries. I guess probably because they've got all the raw materials in the country where they don't need importing to actually make the helmets. And if you have craftsmen that can do it, you might as well make it as a big like export thing, you know. Probably doesn't require much investment, you know, and all that, and you can probably make quite good returns on it. But yeah, so I mean, I do like the shape of this one, even though, like I said, I know it's not the most practical design, but I suppose that's just ha ha ha, I'm going to colonially oppress you. But yeah, like I said, these are still worn ceremonially, aren't they? And they're also, again, a PIF helmet is actually a practical helmet, even with like in the modern day. Yeah, it will keep the sun off your head, and in some ways they're better than just standard sun caps. They're heavy. Vietnam, not USSR. Right, Ohio, Uncle No. I don't have an S10 behind me. There's an FM12 behind me somewhere on there. There's also the Avon C50 there, and my Camelbacks come now, so I can actually do a video demonstrating using any of the Avon masks with a Camelback, because I've got, you know, the Camelback adapter thing, so you can actually drink from a gas mask with a Camelback on, which is actually a lot more practical than using the little bottles with them. But yeah, so I'll probably do a video on that either tomorrow or one of the days next week. I mean, yeah and no, Josh, it depends. The colour wouldn't really affect it too much, I don't think, because it's not like it was pure black. I think it's just more the amount of layers you have on. But yeah, I mean, in general, during like a lot of the colonial war periods, the soldiers weren't really dressed in, you know, a way that was suitable for a lot of the environments they were in. You know, it's more, again, I think everybody was probably quite happy when smokeless powder and, like, you know, camo style uniforms became more common, that you could actually wear clothing that was actually a lot more suitable for the environment, rather than you must wear your team's colours in whatever, like, fancy drip uniform, you know, you're being issued with because we want to show off. So who cares if you get hot or too cold? You have to look good. M16s worked fine. That's one of those kind of like made up things from history, or like misremembered things. I think we've been over this before. It's that when the M16 first went into use, it was on purposely sabotaged by parts of the US Army who wanted to keep the M14. But the M16 in itself is perfectly reliable. It's just that they basically issued it with the lowest quality ammunition and told soldiers you don't need to clean it. But the M16s don't jam if you're using them under proper circumstances. When you say GOST and NATO compatible gas mask filter, you can't. I mean, most filters are either in GOST or NATO. I mean, most NATO masks will take GOST filters, but not the other way around. So just get a GOST filter, like a modern Chinese GOST filter or whatever. But yeah, in general, like obviously NATO filters for NATO masks, GOST filters for GOST masks. Because the problem is, obviously, if you're trying to do something that's not threaded for your actual mask, there's always not going to be a perfect chance of it sealing. Like I said, in general, you can never put NATO filters on GOST masks because of how the screw thread works. GOST filters tend to work on NATO masks because they're slightly thinner threaded screw. But again, if it was a life and death scenario, you do not want to risk that. You know, you want something that's perfectly designed for the mask you're using. But with, like saying, with some GOST filters, because they're close enough, they'll screw in and still, you know, push tight to an O-ring. But I've got a PMK1, a PMK. I don't know if I've got a PMK2. I've got a PMK1. I think it's a PMK3. I reviewed a PMK. Was it an S or a PMK4 before? And that was the only one in the PMK series I actually liked. Yeah, I mean, Vietnam had a lot of different gear. Bear in mind, with Vietnam, you had the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese Army. All right, Ryler Audio. I mean, well, technically the C3, although it's Canadian, is basically just a light anti-gas respirator. It's just made from like slightly better materials because it's more modern. But yeah, the Canadian C3 is just a light anti-gas respirator. So it's a 1950s British design that's just been made from, you know, like higher quality rubber and like plastics the Canadians used when they made it, whereas the British one's kind of like thicker, less comfortable rubber. Sadly, I don't have any American PIF helmets because, like we were on about earlier in the thing, I'd like one of the US like postal worker style ones that like they have in Fallout New Vegas with the NCR. Yeah, again, that's the point actually. Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to ask something like Baroque for days if there probably were models of like anti-gas respirator with oral nasal cups. But yeah, for the main part, the Canadian one is a better mask. They probably did, Alfie. Like I said, basically every single military that operated anywhere in hot climates in the 1800s to like early 1900s used PIF helmets. Just because of the fact that they're obviously very nice if you're in hot, horrible, sunny weather. You know, stops you from getting sunstroke, essentially, at least the sun beating down all over your head. Yeah, the P38 is obviously, yeah, the Luger looks cooler though, but yeah, the P38 is actually fairly close, I think, to a Beretta 92, isn't it, in terms of like operating mechanism. Yeah, like I said, but the postal ones, like I said, again, the postal ones, it makes sense they use it, because if you're actually on a postal round, like, you'll see in loads of countries postal workers wearing caps when it's sunny. Like I said, the PIF helmet is just as good as a cap. It's probably slightly better. Like I said, it's slightly heavier, but so little, much heavier that you wouldn't notice the difference. But, it is a thicker, better material for actually stopping UV from hitting you in the head. But anyway, I won't be on too much longer because, like I said, annoyingly, don't have too long to do a stream today. But thank you to everybody that came on as well, and thank you to Dutch Vandalind for the $2. Gotta have faith. So tomorrow, I'm definitely going to get a video filmed, but there's several different things I want to do a video on. So I'm going to end up seeing what I get time to film. Boonie hats. The only boonie hat I've got is a reproduction Rhodesian one, but they're pretty good. But again, their boonie hats are obviously a lot lighter, but again, it depends. If you were using something for modern camouflage kind of use, you'd probably want a boonie hat. But for like old fashioned, it looks cool. Obviously, a PIF helmet. Again, it swings and roundabouts. Like, I like that Japanese World War II cap as well, where they have like the big neck flap and like the ear flaps on it. That kind of military cap, Ohio Uncle, you see loads of people wear in like any time from like 70s, 80s onwards. The one that's kind of a bit like a fishing hat. Just us talking about hats and helmets hype. Pifinator 5000. But yeah, I don't know if you missed loads of stuff of interest. We were just mostly talking about PIF helmets for the most of it. Oh, and I did dig this out again the other day because I actually found where I put this, because I was looking for this for like a few weeks, and I'd actually put it away in a really neat place, but I was looking for all stuff that was disorganized, and I was like, oh, it was just perfectly lined up on a shelf with a load of my other Geiger counters. It's just that because it was neatly on there, I didn't spot it. Where I was like looking at all like cluttered shit everywhere. I was like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And then yeah, so there's the measle. I still need to do a test of this using X-rays, but I haven't tested this one with X-rays yet. But, yeah, exactly. So it's one where I'd probably had it somewhere where it wasn't very neat, put it on one of my shelves that I actually have properly organised for things. And then because it was properly organised, I kept just looking past it, thinking, nah, it's not going to be anywhere like that. Well, Roman Legion helmets aren't very practical in the modern day. I mean, again, lots of these helmets I think look cool. It's just a case of, No, I would do Airsoft if there was anywhere near me that did it, but sadly, the only place that does it near me, like nearish me, I think is once a month, like one Sunday, like once a month. Still like a 30-40 minute drive, so I'd have to book the Sunday off work to do it, and then it can get called off for weather or if like not enough people are going that day. So it's one of those things, like, I would like to do Airsoft more, but because there's not anywhere really near me that does it very often, I've ended up just like not bothering. And like one of my mates that used to play Airsoft, same sort of thing with him, that because it was sort of, not when it was convenient for him to do it anymore, he's just stopped doing it. Yeah, I did it with the standard KC761 and it worked pretty well. I'm just wondering how that A model, the improved model, does it differently. I have got I've got an obsolete caliber, like musket shotgun kind of thing, old smoothbore hunting shotgun. But again, like I was saying with DX, when that was being asked about earlier, it would have to be just at a sensible price, because the problem is, I'm not going to pay silly money for something that's deactivated, in all honesty, unless it's a military rarity. And if it was like a deac pump shotgun, it would still have to make a cool like pump racking sound, because if they deactivated the pump, I would not bother. Yeah, I did a review on it today, Ian, because somebody asked me the other day, was it any good, and had I done a review on it? And I said, I'm sure I've done a review on it. And then I looked across my channel and I hadn't. Yes, the GMC 800 is one of the best things you'll get around the £100 price mark. And before I go, I'll let Velocity Voyager redo his thing. But yeah, like I said, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it does compare hype. But like I said, yeah, the problem is that, like I said, it's just one of those things that every time I thought to do it. It's just an old kettle helmet, basically, but it works. Speaking of Brody helmets, I've got a Chinese knockoff Brody helmet to do a review on, as in like one made for like reenactors, like, you know, one of those companies that does both Stow helms and Brody helmets. But what I was doing was I was stretching the liner out because annoyingly, it seems really good quality, but the problem I had with it is the liner in it, because the liner where it had been packed for transport was kind of like pushed into one direction. Like the liner was really stiff on my head, so at the moment I've stuffed a load of like stuff into the liner to try and stretch the liner so it fits my head a bit better. Well, when I do a video, JJ, I'll get my real one out and we'll compare it side by side, both in like weight and everything else. But it seems pretty damn good. Again, like the nut on the top that secures it is slightly different with a different screw. But again, because so many Brodies are made, I don't know if they even all use the same thing as my Mark II did. Some of them might use slightly different fastening systems. But from just quickly handling it, you know, trying it on briefly, but not for too long, because like I said, I need to stretch the liner out so it's not uncomfortable. It did seem very good, but obviously it's basically in a brand new condition with obviously like all like the leather little like, you know, like shoelace bits in it are all pretty damn good and nice. Whereas obviously my old Brody's a bit aged, so it's hard to tell. Yeah, I know Miltech with some of their repros do good stuff. Because I've got, again, Miltech's a bit weird because it's like one of those things where I've got a couple of Miltech things that are really awful quality and some that are really, really good, like almost one-to-ones the real thing. So again, if Miltech do like knockoff Alice stuff or whatever, I don't know how good their stuff would be. Well, it's like the same Ohio Uncle gas masks where people put any random fucking Cold War gas mask, rare World War II gas mask. It's like, it's neither of those two things. It's to stop the gas mask fogging up, Ian. So basically, when you breathe out, the oral nasal cup stops your breath from rising up and hitting the lenses. So yeah, again, I wouldn't mind a Brody helmet made from AR-500 steel, even though that'd probably be stupidly heavy. But again, there's something about the Brody I really like. Like, yes, I know it's nowhere near as like good as a Stahlhelm style shape helmet, but I just like them. But yeah, so the oral nasal cup, the whole point of it basically is normally that you breathe in, the air will come in normally in a Tissot system past the eyes, defog the eyes when the cold air comes in. It then normally has valves in the oral nasal cups that will go downwards, but then you can't breathe out and upwards, you know. So the oral nasal cup basically is just to direct your airflow around the mask better. Or if you don't have an oral nasal cup, you get fogging really quickly because the hot air as you breathe out will rise up and start fogging the lenses. Yeah, JJ, exactly. Like I said, it's one of those things that there's a lot of annoying stuff, in all honesty, where like the sort of shrinkflation we're in, where there's lots of stuff where people are getting poorer and don't have the money to spend, but lots of companies still want to price gouge as much as possible. Yeah, exactly. So rather than cutting their profit margins down a bit by selling stuff at more reasonable prices, it's just getting less stock in. When I can find American stuff tropical, but the problem is a lot of American stuff you have to pay a lot to import to the UK. I don't know, Hype. I'm trying to think if I've got any World War II masks that have oral nasal cups in. Like things like the US M9 definitely had it. So the US probably were doing it with some masks in the 1940s, but almost none of my other World War II masks have. I know the M9 is like just after World War II, but I know a lot of the M9's design comes from like World War II US masks. So I'd assume maybe the US did. But again, I know there's a lot of masks where sometimes a country, you know, like a bit like with guns, a country comes up with a really cool design like an oral nasal cup. They do it in one mask, find at the time it's too expensive to mass produce or whatever, and then they're not seen again for like 30 years until they become cheaper to like mass produce. Yeah, well, it's like the opposite way around here, Tropical, that US stuff is cool, but you don't see it as often because it, just doesn't turn up. So it's that kind of surplus market you have access to. Probably still gas masks, but not proper plate carriers, but there are some weird like body armors with steel plates and other things. There's also like interwar experimental armor that looks a lot like modern plate carriers. But yeah, again, so this is again that weird funny thing that there were lots of US, like the US and I think the UK had this weird, I can't look it up now because I can't remember what it's called, like I said, I was going off, but like this weird kind of interwar, what literally looks like a plate carrier where you've got the straps there, you've got like a bit of a metal plate there, then there's like another little bit that hangs off there like a groin guard. And but then obviously it was way too expensive for a massive war like World War II to produce, plus the weight of it. So it was one of those things that they actually had lots of the stuff, like, with people wearing it for trials and that. It's just that they didn't. Again, the Soviets had like a weird steel plate thing that they had like strapped around them as well for some of like the troops storming positions. Yeah, well, same with the UK, that it wasn't really until the 2000s that plate carriers became a thing here, or like armored vessel plates. In the UK, they were basically the Northern Ireland flak vests, which are similar, basically based off of the US Vietnam flak vests. Then there was actually a very early kind of combined body armor where the UK had like Northern Ireland vest improved, or whatever they called it, which is a soft either Kevlar or ballistic nylon, I'm not sure, filler vest, and then it had like little plate pockets on the front there. But then Britain then went to just basically a Pascut style thing for a while, and then once Iraq and that started, you started getting the various types of different plate carriers. They had like really heavy armor for blocking rifle rounds, but again, it's still pretty hit and miss if it worked. It was very heavy. So like snipers often had sniper masks, and the reason the German helmets used to have those like little bits on the side of the vents was so you could actually put the reinforced metal plates on them, so you could hang extra armor off the helmet. So yeah, it's one of those weird things where, again, they experimented with like really heavy personal body armor, but other than a few niche roles, it never took off because the cost of doing it and how not valuable human life was in World War One. Mostly Cold War Tropical, just because I find it quite weird and interesting how everybody had their nukes and chemical weapons pointed at each other and it never kicked off. Hang on, I missed a comment there. So what was that? The Reeler Audio says he has an old American as SBR. If I'm not mistaken, they didn't need an oral nasal cut because you breathe through a mouthpiece. But yeah, as Hype was saying, you're still going to get sweat and everything else on the mask. So yeah, you still want airflow over the eyepieces. So yeah, that's why I think the modern design, everybody has just basically decided, like, have air come in, blow onto the lenses, then go through an oral nasal cup out. That way you at least get airflow through the mask. Yeah, I've got an M17A2. Regular M17, M17s and M17A1s are pretty much really hard to find here. Yeah, like you're right, Dev. Like we were saying about World War One, there is lots of weird stuff there, like trench clubs and all the other sort of medieval-looking weapons, like the weird bits of plate armor we were saying, like horse armor and like horse lances and all that sort of stuff, and then totally mechanized with like gas and everything else. Yeah, World War One is interesting. Obviously, World War Two is a lot more interesting than a war, in that a lot more happened in it. Like nothing good, but yeah, World War One is very interesting, but in a sense, because a lot of it resulted in stalemates, or like essentially frozen lines, I think a lot of people don't realize a lot of interesting stuff happened in World War Two. Yeah, the other thing is the A1 is the one that has the resuscitation tube, isn't it? Which was then taken away because that caused a load of issues. But yeah, I've got I think the Polish MP4 I have is what meant to be the closest kind of foreign rip-off to a US original M17, as in valve layout and everything else. I don't know, Velocity Voyager. Ask her like science channel. Yeah, and the drinking tube, and then yeah, it's only the drinking tube, isn't it, on the A2? Yeah, I know, JJ, that obviously even in World War II they had like some various sorts of drones and remote systems, but obviously not video control ones, but you had like the Goliath RC little tank and that. A flechette, or a single flechette? I wouldn't pay 40 euros for a single flechette. Or do you mean like a shotgun round with flechettes in? But still, that still seems very expensive. Yeah, I've got an M17 hood as well, Tropical. So the M17 I've got is always stored in its hood because it's a pain in the ass to take the hood off and on. And the other one, I don't like the mask too much itself, but I do like the hood because I've got the Czech M10M, which is a Czechoslovakian ripoff of an M17. And that, the cool thing is I've got the quite rare for it East German chemical hood. So it's got the strict tarn camo pattern on the chemical hood. I'll look up the Kettering bug. I've heard of it, but I don't actually know loads about it. So. Unmanned aerial torpedo. Interesting. Right, I'll have a look at that page after I finish the stream. Like I said, I will have to go in a minute. Chinese TF1, absolutely fine. Again, though, the only thing with some of the Chinese masks like the TF1, Ian, is it really depends on like which particular factory makes it. Because with some of the Chinese masks, I've had some that are really good. I've had others where the quality control is so bad, you know, you wouldn't want to risk using it. So yeah, you have to. I know, like TF in theory should be Tao Feng or whatever it is, but yeah, with each of the Chinese masks, you'll probably have to look up a list of which factories make good quality versions of it and which ones to avoid. I assume Tropical, it was just that at one point people imported it for cheap when the Cold War ended. Yeah, I've got an M40. The only thing I don't like with the M40 Tropical, as much as I think the mask looks really cool, is I don't like the fact that the mask is silicone and then you have to wear the second skin butyl like cover on top of it to make the mask actually like proper NBC proof. Like I know that they made it out of silicone because apparently it's like less people have skin irritation with it and that. But there's a reason I think most countries just make the masks out of butyl in the first place, because you'd rather just have the mask itself rather than you know. Oh, just because I want to see what it looks like with the thing. Let's do it with the British one rather than the Vietnamese one. So I'll just do it with the C50 because it's handy. Oh yeah, it's probably when your VPN crapped itself tight, but well, this kind of actually fits weirdly enough. Yeah. I've actually got the proper camelback now, so I can do a video on any of the Avon masks with that drinking tube adapter you told me about, which I bought a while ago, but then didn't have a camelback to put it on. I've now got the camelback, so I fitted it to it, so I can now do videos testing a camelback sort of drinking system with any of these gas masks, because I have the Avon connector that lets me plug it straight into the camelback. Anyway, I'll be off in a minute. Okay, if I don't call, like I said, I have no idea if you'd get it with the badge or not. But yeah, you mean that bit silicon nose piece? Yeah, it definitely does feel different when you say that now. But yeah, and the drinking tube, I imagine, is probably a different type of rubber. But yeah, I'll definitely have to test this out with that camelback on and do all that. And any of the other masks where we were questioning if they are a direct rip-off of or not of the British drinking tubes with some of the foreign countries that did rip off S10s and that, because yeah, I am actually interested in finding out if the hydration systems work together. M50 uses specialized filters that basically connect to the mask directly, and then it's designed that when you take the filter off, it seals the mask. So they're not 40mm. C50 is 40mm. So M50 is kind of more like a cheek filter mask, or the British GSR. It's like specialized filters that only fit that mask, but are designed to be more slimline. And normally, I think you're meant to always wear 2 filters of it at once. Whereas, obviously, like the C50 is just a standard 40mm mask. But the C50 does have a specialized filter that you can use with it that's more compact than a mask than like using a standard one. So it is still more compact than a lot of masks, but that would actually be kind of interesting, because I wonder with some of those companies if they could actually figure out if it would be a good enough market that they could actually sell those and, you know, do it. Yeah, I've had one before, Tropical. I had a surplus M50 before I traded it for some night vision. But yeah, I assume that was just stolen US property. Although, weirdly, some of the, although normally it's actually US Avon, isn't it, that makes the M50s, not in the British factory. All right, John's Life. Yeah, in the UK, you can normally get surplus police FM12s that are only a couple of years old for about £50 to £100, and they're very good. Oh, so also we into an what was it? Do you mean an ROC post, RCO post? So Castleton Cold War bunker. I'll Google it though, just for and then like I said, we'll have to go in a minute. Castleton Cold War bunker. Oh, that's cool. Oh, so that's actually a bigger one. So when I'm searching that on images, there's both an ROC post coming up, but then there's another thing coming up as well. I think the other one coming up isn't thing. But yeah, but they've got a nice shade of green paint on that ROC post, yeah. Do they do the thing as well where they put solar panels there so they can just put some little dim lighting inside so everybody can see inside? That looks very similar to the one I went to Broadway Tower, where like every couple of days a week or whatever, they do a thing where you can pay and get given a talk down there. But yeah, like I was saying, Soz, it's a shame all the boomers were buying them up thinking they could practically use them, or people were just demolishing them. But yeah, like I was saying, Snoz, I would love to get one of those as like a man cave kind of thing. But sadly, like I said, Monkey invaded Ukraine, and then all the boomers drove the price up of them because they thought they could buy one miles away from their house and that they'd actually survive a nuclear war randomly just by owning one without, you know, putting any preparation into actually being inside it. But like I said, I like our ROC posts. You know, back when this country could still build things, because they built 1,500 of those in like a couple, like in less than a 10-year period or whatever it was, plus all the other like nuclear infrastructure bunkers. But now we can't build shit, so there you go. I've not got an M50E and I've got a C50, so it takes 40mm filters. Yeah, it's like I said, if there's any abandoned ones or whatever, and you can get on the land, because I've gone to 1 or 2 on like abandoned land, but some of them, like even one when the hatch was ripped open, I didn't crawl down in because you could see there was water and like horrible smell coming out of it, so you knew it was one where like people had been like pissing and shitting down it, and you know, yeah. But NIMBY, yeah, again, JJ, near me, they want to construct a load of stuff that would be absolutely great for the people actually living here. You know, like more places to work. All right, Hype, I'm off in a minute anyway. Have a good evening. So yeah, near me, they want to like construct a new football ground and, you know, like shops to go along with it. You know, like maybe a cinema, a bowling alley, all that sort of stuff. And it would be really good for people in our area because it would be jobs and like more shops that you could go to and everything else. But of course, the fucking NIMBY people don't want it there because, oh, it might drive my house price down, but there's actually things you can do near my house. So, yeah. So, yeah, we're in a fucking NIMBY area as well. Yeah, it sounds good, John. Anyway, yeah, I better go because, like I said, I kept saying I'll go off, and then I've still been stuck on. So, yeah, I will get a video done tomorrow, but at the moment, I don't know which thing I'll be doing a video on. Because, like I said, I've got several things I want to do a video on. So I'll do a video, but I don't know what on yet. So, all right, cheers. Thanks for coming on, Visa. It might be a short, it might not. If it's something I can try and cram within 3 minutes, I'll do it as a short. If it's one of the videos that will take a bit longer, I'll do it landscape. If it's like, say, the drinking tube thing for the Camelback, because if so, I want to test that with a few masks, and there's no way I can cram that all into one short. Right, thank you, everyone. Have a good day. You too, Ian. See you all hopefully tomorrow, and then I probably won't be on as usual at the weekend because I'll be busy at work.